The end we start with 2023. This is a survival film, this genre. It's not exactly a disaster film, although there is a disaster. I would say a disaster film's more like The Day After Tomorrow. And that, in a way, feels much more overblown. It's on a much larger scale, and many of the key characters have power in that film. This is on an individual level. I think it's a different type of genre. It feels much more realistic, much more believable. You could actually be in that situation. I felt that I could have been the main character. Any of us could have. Jodie Comer plays the mother. I don't think she has a name in the title role at the end. Almost everyone had initials, and I think that's a bit confusing. I prefer everyone to have a name. However, you don't actually hear the names of people in the film. That's the rationale. In a major crisis, you wouldn't necessarily pick up on people's names. There'd be so much more on the forefront of your mind. And I imagine that's exactly why everyone is called just letters A, B, R, O, U. So what happens is Jodie Comer's character, she's at home, it's pouring down outside. The rain is absolutely torrential. She has a bath and she talks to her bump and it's very sweet. And then she gets out and sits in the dining room having something to eat. And the storm continues. It rains. It won't stop. It's perpetual, persistent rain in the garden. Everything is getting submerged. And then the water starts seeping into the home. That early part of the film is captivating because there have been storms. In fact, this weekend we've just had Storm Isha and the rain really belts down. And I'm in London, and London was the least affected place. It wasn't under amber or red warnings. So the mother suddenly feels like she's starting to go into labour. Her waters are breaking and she's in pain as she struggles into the hall. And she tries ringing up the hospital. All the numbers are busy. It seems impossible. And so she starts visualising her home flooding. The windows breaking as water submerges her home. I've certainly had dreams where I've been so terrified of the wind and the rain when it's extreme. When there's one of those very severe storms with a jet sting, and when the weather forecasters warn of tornadoes, you can easily imagine the roof being ripped off or the windows being smashed. It can be really frightening. And so it must be 10 times worse if you're in such a vulnerable state. You're pregnant, you're about to give birth. She is able to get to hospital, and her husband comes along, brings some belongings, because they're not going to be able to go back home. They're going to have to find somewhere else to go. His parents' place, there's an immediate registration scheme. So when they leave, they have to immediately choose their name for their baby. They come up with the stories I've heard from parents about how they veto each of those suggestions of names until they find one name that does work. And of course, the queues out of London, that's where it feels like every disaster movie, every film where something catastrophic happens. The traffic stands still, there's tailbacks on all the major arteries out of the city. And then there's news that towns outside London, small provincial towns across the country, have set up roadblocks because they don't want to get submerged by people escaping from London. So they've got one crisis after the other to deal with. There's so much that think about films like The Road, 2004, The Children of Men, 2006. They go to the father's parents' place. You think, phew, they've got to safety, but their troubles are only really just starting. There's terrible tragedies that happen after that. It's very poignant. The way it's explained, you don't even get to know the detail. You see it from Jodie Comer's character's point of view. The information doesn't come out very easily when her partner comes out of the car and he's crying, and you see her partner's father, he's played by Mark Strong, bent over in grief, and you don't really get to know exactly what's happened until later on. The narrative is drip fed to us. I really like that. This is how I imagine it would be in a crisis of such magnitude. The information would come through, but it would come through really slowly. You'd pick it up, you'd put it together. I think that's a good thing about the script, the way the story's told. Then, because they need food and they can't grow food, there's a disagreement about whether to go into a shelter or not. Now, this element of the story reminded me of How I Live Now, 2013. That was another really amazing survival story. You really feel like you're there in that situation. She strikes a friendship and crosses Britain to an island, probably in Scotland, where this friend believes there's a commune where they can live. And there's all sorts of elements that come up. One character who wants to control the situation. Survivalists certainly do want to keep things together. They want people to be present, and people in grief aren't always present. There's elements like that in this film that I absolutely loved. I'm going to score it 9 out of 10. I'd see it again easily. It just felt super realistic. It's really the type of film I most like. It's so scary because if real life followed this type of fiction, it would be devastating. Trying to escape London, trying to get out as quickly as possible. The lawless nature of some people. The dystopia, it shows how much life would change if something fairly simple like too much rain, a major flood, could cause for society. This feels like a more immediate, real life risk that we could actually face. And so it's a really strong warning about climate change, about how we need to take action to prevent this kind of scenario from actually happening. On an island like Britain, we would, I think, collectively react in the kind of way shown in this film, and it would be very difficult. That's my verdict. I'd love to know what you'd think if you've seen this film. Thanks for watching. Please like. Thank you for subscribing if you do. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.